Hello friends, so we were discussing about EIA, different aspects of EIA. We have seen like what are those concepts like screening, scoping. So, the processes of EIA we were looking into. Today we will discuss about methodologies, means in that particular process what are those methodologies which are implemented to carry out those processes of EIA. So, in this particular lecture we will cover like different methodologies of EIA, for example ad hoc method. Okay. So, we will see what are the ad hoc method, checklist method, then matrix method or networking method, overlay method and simulation techniques, and then cost benefit analysis and environmental index method. So, at several occasions different kind of methods are used. It is not necessary that every kind of method is applicable everywhere, and at last we will see like benefits and limitations of different methods and a few examples, and then we will conclude it. So, as we have seen in the list, so pictorial representation of different techniques like ad hoc method, checklist method, matrix method, this is shown in different boxes. When we talk about ad hoc method, then basically some indicators are used like broad areas of possible impacts, okay, in a completely subjective way you can say, and then we also list some composite environmental parameters which are likely to be affected. Okay. So, again subjective judgment, and a team of specialists or experts they are identified, and from them this kind of feedback is taken, and then the nature of impacts of those particular activities are also discussed. So, basically there is no particular step by step methodology, but according to the activity we take advice of experts and they suggest whether some negative impact will be there or positive impact will be there. So, means it is a kind of which we have seen in screening. Basically it depends upon the experience of the expert. So, it is more or less intuitive and qualitative. You do not calculate anything, you just see the situation. So, as per your experts experience they will give the decision. So, it can vary from expert to expert, basically that is why it is known as ad hoc method, that there is no much systematic process in that. You just need to ask the experts about a particular activity, and this is kind of a screening process which we have seen in the when we were discussing about different processes. Okay. So, the features are like broad based qualitative assessment, it is very less quantitative means or negligible kind of thing. You just see the situations, activities, gravity, and you decide that this will be very high impactful or moderate impactful or less, those kind of things. So, this is basically preliminary assessment kind of activity, and it identifies some important areas, okay, some important areas, some less important areas, and each parameter is considered separately. There is no integration because there is no feedback available of one factor to another one. Well, common criteria for that like air quality. So, you will ask to the air quality expert that because of this activity air quality will decrease, deteriorate, or it will improve. For example, some highway is coming nearer to a town. So, you will ask a air quality expert that this highway will how much it will deteriorate the air quality of the town. So, depending upon the traffic density and speed and the fuels which traffic will use, expert may give their judgment. Okay. Similarly, like noise or health and safety. So, each areas expert you have to consult, and you have to take their feedback or opinion, and accordingly combined judgment emerges that whether this activity is good or bad, or in which particular sector or criteria there is more to look into, right. So, like broadly speaking we can classify them, for example, opinion poll based, or that means you can do survey, you can ask public also, and public have their own intuition, right, depending upon their span of the experience. Similarly, the expert's opinion may be there, or Delphi method means this is both, means you just discuss the expert's opinion with the public, then public may revise their opinion, and you give the feedback of the public to the experts, and then experts consider the opinion of the public, and then they can revise their judgment or decision. So, the committee of experts decides based on the consensus or majority opinion and also their own experience. The majority opinion may be counterintuitive also, or that may be completely perceptive or fearful. Okay. So, the facts are discussed with those people, and stakeholders are apprised with more information, then maybe you can remove their own those fearful thoughts, etc. Well, for example, in screening process we have already discussed. So, this is the example of ad hoc process. Of course, in screening we do this, that we consult the experts and we take their opinion. Similarly, in USA also, a team of specialists, they identify the impacts of depending upon their expertise area, and then the minimal guidance beyond the requirements of NEPA, those standards, etc., they can pass on their judgment. Well, when we talk about for example, some alternative approaches like 1, 2, 3, 4, there may be 4 alternatives available. So, how to judge whether 1 is better or 2 is better? So, according to these parameters like air quality, noise, you will ask the experts, please give some ranking like 1, 2, 3, it is better or worse. That may be, you can first choose that one will be for worst or one will be for the best one. So, depending upon, then you count and you get to know that okay, as per experts this is fine, this is not much impactful in that particular area. So, those kind of alternative approaches can be decided as per the total count of those ranking systems. Well, when we talk about what are the good points or limitations or shortcomings of ad hoc method, then for example, pros, that means good points are like it is very simple, okay, and it is performed by without any particular hi-fi training. You just go to the expert, you tell about the project, take their opinion and just do the ranking kind of thing. Similarly, there is no weightage or only this alternative approach 1, 2, 3 kind of ranking may be there, otherwise there is no weightage or there is no calculation, very complex calculations, right. And it is broadly possible impacts are discussed basically. It is not like you have run some mathematical model and you got some values, and according to the values you compare with some standards and then you pass your judgment. It is not something like that. It is only the simple opinion based on the experience and the expertise. But there are shortcomings because it is very simplistic, that is all, but it lacks consistency. The reason is, when same project, if you consult 3, 4 experts of the same area, you may get different opinion. So, that means there is no consistency. Of course, a range may be there, maybe like some experts can say okay, I will give it 1, other can give 2, but of course, experts may vary 1, 2 something like that, but they will not assign like 6 or 10, that gap may not be there, but there will be some sort of range. And it is like inefficiency in the sense because you need to consult several times different groups, and consensus, sometimes building consensus takes lot of time. Another method is checklist method and that is like different environmental factors are listed in an structured format. Okay, a checklist, a list is prepared. So, in screening and scoping, again these things have been used, means ad hoc method also plus this checklist method. This is quite frequently used in this process of EIA, which is screening and scoping stages of the EIA. Well, so the importance of weightage of each factor is given to the different parameters which have been listed, and then you do the scaling techniques you use, and the impacts of each alternative is arrived at with the basis of those weightage assigned to different activities. Again, these types of checklist can be like simple checklist, okay. Descriptive means more information, one section then subsection, something like that. Otherwise, simple means 1, 2, 3 only those activities listed. Then scaling and weighting kind of checklist may be there. So, 3 broad types of checklist can be there. Very simple, you just list the activities and you get 1, 2, 3 something like that, opinion yes, no something like that. Or descriptive means you describe those activities little bit more, means rather than air quality you can write NOx level, okay, SOx level, particulate matter, that way you can further classification can be done. So, that can be descriptive. Otherwise, then third will be like scaling and weightage, means you have to give at some scale some weightage will be given depending upon the intensity of the activity and the expert's opinion, right. So, simple checklist, as I said, list of parameters will be there, and without guidelines or any further interpretation, you can give yes or no something like that. And the further needs measurement of environmental parameters or specific data and impact of prediction and assessment, that is further needed, means that is not included in this particular checklist, simple checklist. So, these are like social, environmental, traffic, land use, water and soil loss, traffic noise, okay, air quality, raised dust, those kind of things are simple. In descriptive, you include some environmental factors and the measurement and impact prediction related information and the assessment, right. So, this is like air quality. So, as I said, like PM10, PM2.5, NOx, SOx, you can go on depending upon what kind of activity you are looking into, and this how much area is affected, number of people affected. So, further classification to sub classification. Water quality, again DO, how much DO will be there, how it will be affected, possible pollutants, then effects on the population, similarly noise. So, you can describe, means you can further classify those parameters. So, that is part of descriptive checklist. In scaling or weighting kind of weighing this checklist, you give some weightage to particular parameters. So, 0.8, 0.9, 1, 2, whatever you decide. So, the environmental factors are included, and means along with important environmental factors, you have further description, and the weight is given as per the importance. So, again this will depend upon the expert's experience, but still means you can assign weightage 0.8, 0.9, 0.1 something like that, and it requires expert's experience to on a further scaling. Well, different features, if you want to see the subjective estimates, which is weightage, but this is subjective, it can vary from person to person. Strong in impact identification because those high weightage can give you quick idea that okay, this will be more impactful. Similarly, they can include certain degree of interpretation and evaluation, because when weightage will vary, so a little bit idea will be conceived that okay, this is the variation of different activities. And then for decision makers it is attractive, because the simple reason, it is very easy for them, because when they see more weightage to a particular factor, so they get to know quickly and easily this is more important or this is more impactful, something like that. So, scaling of the checklist can be like weightage for a particular some project is there. So, in terms of air quality, noise, wildlife, local population, water quality, the impact will be in what weightage. So, let us say one air quality related, some experts say this is 40% of weightage I will give to the air quality, because this particular project is going to deteriorate air quality very much. Okay. So, that way the more weightage can be assigned to that particular parameter. So, similarly 15, 10 and total should be 100. So, as I said the weightage can be further decided, and after that you go to other experts. So, for alternative 1, alternative 2, after this 40. So, within 40 alternative 1 may be like 30 or 20, because alternative 1 may be better fuel. So, air quality may not be deteriorated up to that extent. So, the weightage may vary, alternative 1, 2, 3 something like that. But first of all, this was the perceptive based weightage overall, and later on you can go further classification in terms of these alternatives, right. The limitations means like this is danger of imparting equal importance to every impact. Okay, means when you have assigned one value, so you do not distinguish like SOX, NOx, etc., and each is given 40 weightage, something like that. And then some subjective understanding, of course it requires as per the numerical values. So there may be some variation, and there is no provision of dynamic probabilistic trends or mitigation, means one value is assigned, it is assigned, there is no variation, and no monitoring kind of thing in that. It can't identify high orders effects or impacts or interactions. Once one assign this weightage is assigned, then that value is almost fixed, and there is no variation or changes. So checklist, pros and cons if we discuss, means strong points or limitations or shortcomings. So again it is simple to understand and use checklist. List is there, everything, okay. Good for site selection and priority setting, and very quick also. Different parameters are there, weightage is given, or those kind of things, and you can decide. But it does not distinguish between direct or indirect impacts. Okay. Means like in terms of air quality, we do not know whether ozone production will be there or not, indirect, smog will be possible or not. Only very simple assessment, air quality we have just discussed. It does not link action and the impact. Okay. So cause effect is lacking in this particular thing, and sometimes it is cumbersome because the list can be very exhaustive also when you go for descriptive list kind of things. There is another method which is matrix method. So in matrix method we have a framework, okay. Interaction of different activities, a framework is developed, and then different actions of the project listed on one axis, and the environmental impacts on the another axis. So this is a matrix, this vertical and horizontal, you list activities and their impacts, or impacts and activities, either way. Then potential environmental impacts are assessed according to that matrix, and this technique was of course in 71 it was developed, and for different projects it has been widely used, and different characteristics of the environment are judged by, as for assessed by this matrix method. So you can see flora and fauna, this is flora and fauna, air quality, water quality, population density, employment, traffic, these are the environmental components. How it will be affected? Project action, like utilities, construction activity, due to utilities what will be the effect on the flora, fauna or air quality. Building, like residential, commercial kind of activities, so how they will affect. Similarly operations, residential, commercial, parks or open spaces, so they will be another kind of ranking system. So for matrix also there are like some good points or some shortcomings, like it links the actions to the impact. As you can see, some actions like utilities are there, then water, wastewater will be generated, and which we have to deal with. Similarly residential complexes are there, if multi-story building coming, so population density will increase. So those kind of impacts and activities are related to each other. Better displaying EIA results, of course in comparison to other techniques it depicts in a better way, but again the same shortcoming, like direct and indirect impacts are not distinguishable in here. Chances of double counting of impacts may be there, because once we have discussed about residential and there also commercial activities, so double counting may be there, whereas we should take them separately. Does not refer to quantity of the impact, again it is qualitative as other techniques are there. Then there is network method. So in network method extension of this metric method with primary and secondary impacts. So this is further evolution of the matrix method, you can say, right. So it is a kind of tree, branches are there, and this impact tree is like flow chart becomes, and the cause and effect linkages are particularly emphasized upon. Then identities, direct, indirect impacts, and forming the impact tree for this tree formation. Better understanding for non-technical audience, because this will give different branches, one will lead to the another impact, and one impact will lead to another kind of activity. So this cause and effect is there. For example, it is clear from here, like initial condition, increased surface runoff, so flooding may be there, okay, impact may be there. Similarly, so A activity will have impacts F, I, L, okay, and B may be similarly, D may go to E also. So, networking means from one point to another nodes it can go. So, it can be cross functioning also. So, this is one another example of network method. So, different branches are taken and the magnitude like 5, 2, 3, 2, 1 something like that is given, and accordingly some quantitative values are taken. So, the again pros and cons, if the network method we discuss. So, it links action to the impact. So, this is again like matrix, one more advantage for this. It checks second order impacts, whereas in matrix it was not there, because this impact can lead to another impact. So, the secondary or further impacts can be linked with the previous one, handles both direct and indirect impact. So, that is a good point, but still there are some limitations or shortcomings, like is overly complex if used beyond some simplified version, because one tree becomes from one point it will go there, here, then other point will go here, and it will go this point also, this may lead to this one. So, becomes very complex after certain point, and it appears to be quantitative, because you can see here some magnitude, importance. So, some numbers are given. So, it looks like it is quantitative, here also some calculations are there, but still it is qualitative in nature, because from expert to expert, from people to people, these values can vary. It is not like one absolute value is there in standards and we have to follow the same value, it is not something like that. Well, another method is overlay method. So, this is based on mapping basically. So, maps are used, and maps are different color schemes, they can give you idea of impact of the density of the colors may vary, and like slopes and wetlands, soils, footprints, bedrock, all these can be shown in different colors. So, visually it is much easier to understand, but still there are good and bad points or limitations you can call. Easy to understand, good display, colorful visuals always give us more understanding, as you know, and then it is very nice for setting site selection, because contours are there, some like pond is shown here, those kind of topographical representations can give us better idea that where one project will be launched or established, it is good site or bad site, there is flood plains or not, what are other activities may be there, but only direct impacts, because in that color scheme if you are having slopes, so you will find that okay, this will give much water, and during rainy season it can fill some pond here. So, those kind of direct impacts only visible, and it does not address impact duration or probability, as it was earlier in network or matrix related methods, where some values are given. So, those kind of things are not available in that in this particular technique. And old versus new techniques are also there part of overlay method, because nowadays GIS, geographic information system is there. So, computer based map preparations, these are much easier, but easier in the sense much quickly, and computer based techniques are there, but you need skilled personnel for that. Nobody means everybody can't prepare those maps, some expertise must be there. Earlier it used to be like transparencies we used to create, and some color scheme of different colors we used to give. So, the soil condition map may be there, like here water condition mapping, atmospheric conditions. So, different color schemes give different values of air quality or something. Biodiversity is shown, again dark green, light green something, and then all these different aspects, different layers are there, 1, 2, 3. So, you can combine also them, but then it will be little bit complex, otherwise separately you can study and come to certain conclusions. Another method is simulation method, that is like quantitative, and some models are run, mathematical models are run, and for example, CFDs are there, or some Gaussian model you can use for air quality assessment. So, at micro or macro level you can have different kind of boundary conditions, and you can do modeling work, and due to modeling you get some values, and those values you can compare with some standards, and you can then pass some judgment that it is good or bad, right. So, then if we compare this simulation of for example, if petrol cars are replaced by electric cars. So, in models you can put those values, how many cars are there, how much fuel will be reduced from burning. So, air quality improvement, how much we can achieve, those kind of things, means different scenarios you can create in model and you can get some values. Then there is cost benefit analysis, because every activity has certain cost, and some impacts may be negative. So, negative externalities, this will be kind of negative cost, but there may be some, for example, job creation or health infrastructure is developed there in a particular locality, then some benefit is also there. Economic and social valuation also done. Okay. So, the impact assessment of any product or small scale service, that can be done with cost benefit analysis, very simple, but again it has certain limitations that we will see. Then there is social cost benefit analysis, because some project has one or other kind of benefits, as I said ki employment generation may be there, or like time saving is there if we are having some road between a village to city, otherwise people used to travel in bullock carts or so, now they can travel with bus or other methods. So, those kind of benefits may be there, social positive impacts may be there, but as I said ki negative externalities are known as negative cost. So, in totality this SCBA, social cost benefit analysis, is done more recently, like through World Bank or other international agencies. They are giving more emphasis to these kind of activities, because they try to combine broader impacts in society and in other aspects of the those projects. Well, there are certain limitations of SCB or social cost benefit analysis, like it also measures social cost and benefits, but it is not so easy, because converting everything into monetary things, it is very difficult. There are many things which are intangible, only tangible things you can convert into monetary things, but there are many things which are intangible and it becomes difficult. So, everything, like for example, suppose because of a project some accidents happen. So, how will you evaluate the life's value, whether it is 1 lakh or 1 crore or something. Insurance has some way of evaluating those values, but still if single person bread earning person is died in a accident, so it is a loss of whole family. How can you convert that monetary loss in that way? So, those are the issues. In fact, many schools of thoughts, they discuss and debate on these particular aspects. Then future projects comparison is difficult, because we do not know what kind of technologies will be there to intervene at after 15 years or 20 years, those kind of things. For example, right now we have been doing many things online even during pandemic, but 50 years back this was not possible. Okay. Impact of the ecology and people for a particular region and country as a whole are bound to be differing from case to case. As I said ki different socio-economic groups have different value system, and it is not necessary that they will agree on a particular monetary value which has been assigned to a particular activity. Okay. Then another method is environment index method. So, in this particularly basically ranking is done, and performance, basically based on the performance the indexing is done, and then judgment is passed. So, for example, there are certain parameters and indicators. So, 32 indicators and 11 categories are there. So, there are 11 categories and 32 indicators, different kind of indicators they may be there depending upon what kind of thing we are looking into. So, within environmental, for example, air quality is there. So, within air quality we can discuss about PM10 or the fuel type, or other parts like sanitation, then sanitation, drinking water or the sanitation part, what is their proportion that can be seen. So, depending upon this performance EPI, some countries have been given some values, and accordingly they have been ranked by their performance for the environment, whether it is good or bad. So, in nutshell we can conclude that different methodologies are there for environmental impact assessment, and they have their own good points or some limitations, and we have to use a particular method depending upon the context. It is not necessary that every method is applicable for all the situation. So, depending upon the situation like screening, scoping, we use simple checklist or those kind of things, right. But for let us say power plant is there, so then we have to use some Gaussian dispersion model to look into what will be the impact on the air quality, right. So, we have to see what kind of activity is there and what kind of impact assessment we need to carry out. So, depending upon that methodologies are selected and used for carrying out this impact assessment. So, for today it is all. These are the reference list you can go through to learn more about if some particular topic you find more interesting or you feel more inquisitive, you can look into additional references. So, thank you again for your attention, and we will carry on all other aspects of the EIA or environmental impact assessment in future classes. Thank you.